Of all the episodes in the life of Bhanté Dharmawara, Mahatera, Samdaj Priya, etc., the most remarkable from my point of view is the one that's kind of subtle but really revealing of how extraordinary he and the life he led was, given that he passed physically in 1999, and I'm recording this from my direct experience with him at the time, and with as little editorial comment in the moment as possible, and then I'm going to make some comments at the end. So, the issue is the following. I receive a phone call from Stockton, California, where Bhanté was growing a Buddhist cultural center and vihara temple, quite successfully, by the way, but he was growing it. And they tell me that he has been meditating for 3 days. He hasn't eaten, he hasn't peed, he hasn't pooped. He's been meditating for 3 days. And I volunteered to fly out. So my son Sky and I, and this was some years ago when my son was young, 8, 9, 10 years of age, we fly out, and my assessment is that he's in a coma and he's not meditating. It's not that he's meditating, it's that he is in a, let me say, medical coma. Now, I could try to take care of him there, but that wouldn't really be as successful, I thought, as if I could bring him back to the East Coast and take care of him there. And a small interim story, and this is about Sky. Now, Sky, my son, had never had an artificially colored, artificially sweetened soda. And if people from Indochina really like you, they offer you knee-high orange drink. For whatever reason, but they do. And my son Sky receives this because he's a child and they're giving it to him and he hasn't had it before, so he's interested and he drinks it, and then he comes over to me half an hour later. He puts his head on my knee and he says, "Dad, they don't like me." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, I've never had anything like this. You know, my brain, my gut, my digestion, they don't like this. My liver doesn't like this. They don't like me." I said, "Honestly, Sky, it's not personal. They didn't understand. They were trying to be nice." And he puts his head on my knee and he falls asleep, which was really sweet. Now let's get back to the man in the coma. I mean Bhanté. The Bhanté. How many other Bhantés are there? Many, but not, in my personal experience, Bhanté Dharmawara. And Dharma means the path, and Wara means the one who follows it. So he's Bhanté Dharmawara, the one who follows the path of the Buddha, which, by the way, he followed the path of the Buddha, which is a very profound statement if you take it seriously. So I contact my friend Ed P. Jack, who taught at the University of California at Stockton, and he brings at 3 a.m. a van, and my son Sky and Ed and I get a semi-comatose Bhanté into the van. We bring him to SFO, San Francisco Airport, where at that time my status on United Airlines was sufficient for them to allow me to accompany him on a flight, even though he couldn't talk for himself. He was semi-comatose, and I was infusing vitamin C under his robe. But with all of that said, at that time, they allowed me to bring him from SFO to EWR, from San Francisco to Newark. We arrive at Newark. Our friends from the Peace Weavers community meet us. We get a caravan to their place, an octagonal house in Lambertville, New Jersey at the time. And they, with willingness and with grace, with fortitude and with perseverance, took care of him for weeks while he was in a coma, because he was who he was. And then the following story happens. Well, his great-great-granddaughter Pobo is in the room, and she is at that time somehow an emissary from the country of Cambodia to the United Nations, a foreign service diplomat, now retired, but at that time she was active. And she's in the room because someone was staying with him 24/7 while he was in that coma. And a flash of light and fragrances of frankincense and myrrh and lavender and roses and lilacs and bogadinas and whatever it is that you think is fragrant fills the room. And he sits up. About an hour and a half later, I show up. It's about 4:30 a.m. It's time for meditation. He looks at me and he says, "Where are the students? It's time for meditation." I said, "Well, excuse me, but for the last period of time, they've been taking care of you 24/7. I let them sleep in." He said, "Lazy." And he declared that he was going to do a Thanksgiving blessing, a Thanksgiving appreciation, a Thanksgiving process. So Rebecca brings Anna and Sky, our two children, who are then maybe 5.5 and 3. And he starts this with a simple ceramic bowl, a bamboo whisk, some water, and he whisks the water and then he sprays it, kind of like being baptized. Kind of like, kind of not. But it's about a blessing that carries a physical substance called water to the people in the presence of that room. And during the ceremony, while he's saying Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arato Sama Sambuddhasa, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arato Sama Sambuddhasa, etc., Anna and Sky, the children, start to climb up on the bed. And I think, oh, this might interfere with the sanctity of the moment, so I go as a father to embrace them and bring them off so that they won't be on the bed with the Venerable Dharmawara while he's doing this. Without missing a beat, he says, "They know what they're doing. Do you?" So I stop. I pull back. By the time this event was over, Anna and Sky were drenched. That's a blessing. A compounded blessing. A blessing on a blessing on a blessing on a blessing. They're drenched, but that's okay. We have dry clothes and they're waterproof. And he looks at me and he says, "Next time, realize that maybe someone else has better sense than you." Wow. Thank you. Deep bow of gratitude, reverence, of whatever. If I can live into what he was very simply but very directly saying. So then everyone leaves and I say, "Okay, what happened?" "Oh," he says, "oh, I must tell you." "Yes, I really would like you to must tell me." He says, "Well, a delegation of monks came from the other side to accompany me to the other side," which means he was going to die. And his response from what he said was, "Well, I have work to do. We must not be hasty." And they say, "Well, we don't set the calendar. In fact, most people don't get a delegation. You know, it's fortunate you get actually us, but we're just doing our job. We're not, setting the schedule." And he, being Bhanté, he says, "Okay, so who sets the schedule?" And of course the answer is Lord Buddha, the Buddha. How many Buddhas are there at any one time? We had Gautama Buddha about 2,500 years ago. The question is, when will Maitreya Buddha be here? That's another subject for another time, because he might be related, or be it. And he says that they said that he could appeal directly to Lord Buddha. And he associates the flash of light, he associates the fragrance and the aromas, he associates the benefits and the, going from lying down in a coma to sitting up and wanting to know where the students are for meditation. That's a pretty dramatic change. I'm a doctor. I can tell you that's a pretty dramatic change. So what happened? Well, I'm not entirely sure, but I know someone reliable was there. I know the people ran in with fire extinguishers and so forth because of the flash of light. I know that the fragrance continued to the point where when I arrived an hour, hour and a half later, I could still smell something fragrant and unusual. And he was sitting up as in not lying down in a coma, but sitting up talking with Pobo, talking with the people who were there, because I'm back. I'm back? Where'd you go? Do you know where you went? We hope you do. Do you know where you went? We hope you do know where you went. And if you know where you went, can you tell us? And what happened? And he informed me because, as far as I can tell, through most of that process, he was remarkably aware, conscious, and reflective, able to recount and retell what had happened to him. Gosh, that's pretty unusual. But just one of the moments in the life of Bhanté Dharmawara, Bhanté Virabellum Dharmawara, Samdashpriya Bhanté Virabellum Dharmawara Mahatera Mahatma. How many people have all of those names? Most of them were attributes. Most of those were qualities that he had attained within the Buddhist world. And it was my privilege to be with him long enough and directly enough as student, as advanced person, as a personal physician, but also as a personal student, to offer to you that there are remarkable people out there, only a few at any time on the planet. Meetings with Remarkable Men is worth reading or seeing as a movie. That was about Gurdjieff. That led me in part to Bhanté through John Bennett, another episode that we've recorded. And may you all be well and happy. May we all attain the full measure of the possible life that is laid out for us, even if we have an ambling or rambling or integrative way of getting there. Let us do the best we can at the moment. Let us know that the best we do is sufficient at the moment, but let us do better each moment, each moment, each moment. May you be well. May we all be happy.